write a plan of care, you're going to go to the documentation tab on Clinic Source, search for your patient. I've got mine, so I'm going to click the checkbox by evaluation, and then I'm going to go to the little yellow icon that's Write New Plan of Care. You can hover over the icons if you're not sure what they are. I always forget. Okay, so you're here. Excuse me. When you write a new plan of care, there's a box over here. You can kind of see the pink a little bit, but that says active. We want to check because we want our plan of care to be not active unless it's an initial evaluation. If it is an initial evaluation, we want to keep that checked. But if you're rewriting a new plan of care, you want to uncheck it. Okay. This drop-down box, we want to be plan of care, just care plan. We want to change it to that. And then POC date, we want it to start when the next POC is coming up. So I'm going to go to my client's base camp. And my next plan of care is 6/25 of 2020. So even though that's a far ways away, you should be doing these about 3 weeks before, so it won't be. So I set it for 6/25, and then I'm going to click Insert. Okay, so all of this top information, if it is a care plan that is not the initial care plan, so not the initial care plan, all of this information is going to be the same as your previous care plan. You can go to that. Search for my client. I'm going to pull up his old care plan. So all of this information should be the same. So I'm going to copy and paste medication, other therapies, this diagnostic, impression and functional impact, and then this functional outcomes and discharge criteria. I'm going to copy that and fill that in all right here. If this is an initial evaluation, you would want to reference your parent interview and your intake paperwork for all of this information, for this top information anyway. This diagnostic, impression, and functional impact statement, if we go to the evaluation, so it would be the initial evaluation, it is going to be the statement down here at the bottom. That should be the exact same. So I'm just going to copy and paste that in there. Functional rehab potential is good. For functional outcomes and discharge criteria, that template is in the how-to document, that narrative that you would copy and paste in here. And then there's some options for different functional outcomes. And that is up to your discretion, what you think would be best for your client. For estimated duration, you always do 3 or 4 months. Plan of service is always office, even if it's teletherapy. And you're going to fill in this box based on which code you're needing, but it's almost always this top one. 3 months is about 26 units. You want to click individual, and then this is where you enter the goals. So I'm going to choose this blank template one, but if you scroll down, there's several options that you can choose from that are already preset. First, I'm going to do my long-term goal, so I'll check it. And you always want your long-term goal to be percentage, so I'm going to click it. And I'm going to click this little target to enter it. I don't know if that's a target, but I'm going to call it. Area of concern, that's just which area that you're focusing. Articulation, expressive language, pragmatic language, etc. You just enter that there. Long-term goals, there are some different ideas for long-term goals in the how-to document. It's also beneficial sometimes to ask clinicians if they have had a similar client the same age and maybe working on the same things to get some ideas. For this achieved part, you always want to make sure that it's just on this option that has nothing in it. You don't need anything for long-term goals there. So within our short-term goal, I'm going to click short, and then I'm going to add it as a percentage goal. Click the little target. Again, I'm going to enter my area of concern. If it's articulation, again, in our short-term goal, and there's some ideas on the how-to document in that. And then this percent achieved is kind of like their baseline. So where they're at after evaluation or after a certain plan of care, it's going to be that same number you put on your summary. I always like to go in and change my short-term goals to count from 1. Even if I have 1, 2, 3, 4 long-term goals, I like to have 1, 2, 3, 4 short-term goals, etc. No equipment is required, but if it is, you would say yes and then list what is required. Authorization range. So for a client who this is not an initial plan of care, you would go to what it says at the top of their base camp. So Liam has, I'm trying to look what insurance he has. I don't know, Sooner Care. Duh. And that's the timeline on it. So, well, it says BC. Anyway, the timeline will be at the very top. And you will want to copy and paste that. And you will want to put that in the authorization range. You can calculate the number of weeks in the date duration calculator. That's what it's called, what it looks like. It's got that little symbol there. And you can calculate how many weeks that is. If it's not easy, like a whole year. CPT code is going to be 92507 unless it's feeding or AAC. Units approved could go here, could be this one. That's how many units are approved. And then units remaining, I'll show you how to do that. So if we go back to where you are searching for a client on the documentation tab, okay, the screen is going to look like this. And we scroll down in the bottom left corner, excuse me, it says how many remain, 63 of 104. So you would use 63 as that number that goes in, and how many are remaining. The authorization plan and units are a copy and paste statement from the how-to document, and you fill it in with your client-specific information. If you're doing this from an initial evaluation and you have to request units from maybe Sooner Care, you would want to do it in a 3 to 6 month chunk for an initial evaluation, depending, of course, on if they come in with a diagnostic code already associated with their deficits. But again, that's more client dependent, but general rule is 3 or 6 months. You would always want to start the plan of care. I didn't mention this, but if it's not an initial, if it is an initial evaluation and not one where somebody already has a base camp, you want to set this date out a week or two. So if today's the 27th, I would want to set it for May the 4th or May the 11th. I wouldn't want to do it any sooner than that because Sooner Care will take longer to approve that. Well, or will take that long to approve it. So you would create an authorization range. The state duration calculator is going to be your friend again. So you'd go to, let's do it on May 11th. Let's request for 6 months. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm sorry if you could do that in your head and I couldn't, but so that would be November the 9th. That's 26 weeks. Let's go back to, so we would do May 11th to November 9th. It's 26 weeks. So on units proposed, something to consider is if you think 2 times a week is adequate. You want to consider the time range you are requesting for. If there are breaks in there, like fall break or spring break, if it's the summer and maybe you want to see them extra, or it's the summer and they travel a lot, or they mention they traveled a lot, you want to factor in those things. But a good rule is to, if it's necessary for them to be seen twice a week, to factor in 1 to 2 weeks where maybe they're only seen once a week, or maybe they're just not being seen that week. So 26 times 2 for 2 times a week is 52. So maybe I would request 49 units because I thought that was medically necessary, while still giving the family time to have time to be seen once a week, or maybe not be seen certain weeks, because that's factored in. And then you are going to click the check mark because you're done with your plan of care. Whew. Another note is you can see it now, but this is the active button. If it's an initial POC, you would click active. If it's not initial, so you're writing like your second or third plan of care, you would deactivate it. So make sure it's unchecked.